Well, it's another Sunday. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I don't know if I have to do it three times.
No, look, I eat breakfast this morning.
No,
I don't know which this Friday go for
then it means I
breakfast.
eat breakfast every day.
No, eat
A
breakfast.
cup of coffee and a slice of bread. That's what I
right.
have.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Say that with a straight face. So
a cup of coffee and a slice of bread with 2 pieces of cheese. That was breakfast. Happy Sunday, everyone. It's another episode of Sunday Scoops. And this week we continue the wonderful, exciting, and scintillating story of
BB Seaton.
Harris. No, tell them my government name, bread.
You jump off of the thing, but you eat bread and cheese. Bun and cheese time.
Bad man, I eat bun. When I take bun, when I eat bun. We give bun, but
Make I tell you something. If I could have started again, I tell you,
that's like we never, hardly know we're near Sunday school.
we would never have Sunday school today. Because trust me, your introduction sometimes it kickstart the show in a way. And I kill it.
Come back and have a whole start when I start. Second gear and lift clutch.
Bad man don't eat bun. No, we
give bun. We don't eat bun.
But eat bread and cheese.
Yes.
Anyway.
Break bread.
Harris, what is it?
Harris Lloyd
Seaton, better known as BB Seaton,
would have been 80 September 3 this year. He was born September 3rd, 1944, closing out the Second World War. And the man come in with a bang.
Yeah, bang is right.
Yeah.
You just retrospectively, we look for the music and we I don't think Jamaicans generally have the kind of appreciation
and reverence.
Let me rephrase that. It's a little disappointing for me, the way the lack of reverence that we as Jamaicans treat those who have created the music.
And not only that, even the music that was created.
No, that is going to the next domain of this thing. Because when we have people like a Seaton, BB Seaton, who maybe people just know about the Gaylords and you know one tune him do. But if you know the amount of music this man is behind, music he has written that is performed by well-known artists, both in Jamaica and outside of Jamaica.
Duplicity aside, Richie, and some redos apart from the duplicity. Songs that he's produced, written, and everything. And I haven't downloaded everything, but I have 113 tracks right now.
Okay.
113, and that's not even touching half of the works that he's done.
This man has been, to a large extent, the backbone of our music. And, it pains me the way sometimes I say how Jamaicans, a lot of people who play the music as claim them a DJ, have no knowledge of, the people who build the songs that them
the musicians,
famous
the efforts that was put into create. Can you imagine a Coxsone dad? You don't own a studio yet, so first you have to wrangle your artists and your musicians, book studio time at Federal Records, go to Federal Records, and probably have to sit down and wait.
Somebody else other artists have record first, and you have to go the thing, and then to be able to corral these, disparate groups of musicians.
Because sometimes we're not the most disciplined people in our region.
No. But implicit in that, they managed to get some of these artists to be able to work with each other, right? A feature of Jamaican music during that time is that a lot of the people in the studios, a song or a record, and them realize that the song could use a backup or some harmonies, and them just come together, put on the harmonies for the tune and thing. And yeah, there are some economic considerations involved there that sometimes the producer kind of never really pay attention to. But it is that kind of creativity at a time when we don't know nothing about what we're doing. Enough of them and learn this thing I wrote. Yeah. That's the first thing we need to
and
appreciate.
Also, the good thing is that, there are some unsung heroes like that gentleman, I forgot his name, from Australia, who was an engineer.
Oh,
So
yes.
he kind of imparted a couple of his, some of his professionalism to some of these guys. But for the most part, the Jamaican music business is a domestic thing that people just learn on the fly. And when you listen to creativity that was exhibited in the 60s and the 70s, creating different genres for the world, starting out with Boogie Shuffle, which really was just local, but then Ska, which went international, very small, and then we had Rocksteady, 4 glorious years of music. It never really stopped because into the 70s, you had people like a Sugar Minott who adapted some of the Studio One rhythms. And that's the next thing too. We call anything that's on Rocksteady Studio One, which is just like Fab. You call everything, or if it's baby's diaper, we call it Pampers, So that's good. Studio One created a domestic name that people.
Yeah, but Studio One wasn't the only studio record in Rocksteady, right? Yeah, Lloyd Pottinger or Sonia Pottinger.
And then you also had
Duke Reed. You had Beverly's.
Right.
You had
Dynamic Sounds.
Dynamic Sounds. You also had Prince Buster. Right. So, but again, all of these people have one thing in common. Most of them never get no formal training. They learn the thing on the fly.
Right.
And what it produced was what has gotten us to where we are. And that I don't think we as a population pay enough attention and give enough credit to these people who are, as you said, the unsung heroes of the success that our music.
The point in contention, though, Richie, is that sometimes when you have to deal with the economics of life and living, you don't really get, which is where education comes in. And unfortunately, we have not really been educated as to the prominence and how accepted our music and Jamaican culture is. I don't know anything else but to be Jamaican. I don't understand how other people are not Jamaicans. Well, you understand, but trust me, you can't even think about their existence of not being Jamaican. A friend of mine last week was telling me about a situation in Indiana where he has a friend who has a restaurant and in the weekends it's a nightclub. And there's a lot of Africans pretending to be Jamaican. Trust me, Richie.
And that is because we have, to a large extent, abandoned the stage.
Well, because there's not enough of Jamaicans in Indiana, South Bend. So, but Harris Lloyd Seaton, a man who penned songs like ABC Rocksteady, Lady with the Red Dress On, Spit in the Sky for Delroy Wilson to perform for Cox and Dodd, I Don't Need Your Love, BB and Astronauts. They had a group called The Messengers, and then the famous Gay Lads with their big, big bad song with Ode to the Jamaican Woman, My Jamaican Word, Please Accept My Apology. Them big, big tune that lots of duos with Delano Stewart. And, just a real excellent childhood coming into adulthood of being a good songwriter. And then later became a producer and have some big, big songs. Last week we were still up into the 70s, and we just went kick it off, Richie, with that song, as I said, is Ode to the Jamaican Woman, because we're impeding International Women's Week by doing BB Seaton. So the best I can do to remedy this situation is play this song. Last week when we spoke to Charlie Arganier, and he talked about BB Seaton's, his acumen for writing. And when you listen to the lyrical composition, and compared to some of the things that you hear today, you actually were told a story. And today, the stories that are being told are pathetic at best. But there are still some good stories out there, Richie.
I'm going to say this, strange, I hear the arguments about, what's coming out as music. But then I'm listening to some of the current practitioners. Jamie and Marley was that somebody sent me a video of him at UWI, talking to an extensive audience, and he made the point. Somebody asked a question about his lyrics versus, some of the lyrics being passed on, and he made a very profound point when he said, it's one thing to say the music not really say nothing, but you have to remember the music come from the group. So I make reggae music, Jamaican music, particularly intriguing to the world who tune in and listen and go out and dance and that thing. Is that the music come from the street. And him say, some of them songs that him wouldn't sing them, right? Because one girl asked a question about, the disrespecting women and thing and whatever. And so, well, it's not that him wouldn't comment on it, but him say music is generational, and so it come out of the street. So if it's that deep on the street, it is likely that is the messaging that is going to form the songs. No, right. So it'll come off of the street,
which basically bolsters what we've always said.
Yeah, if you want to know
what's going on in Jamaica, listen to the music.
And so from that perspective, I'm not disagreeing with it. Don't misunderstand.
No. I wouldn't take umbrage to that.
Right, but you kind of, our job is to broaden.
And as I pointed out to you a couple of years ago, with the same thing about the current dancer, and I said to you, Richard, music is music and art is art. And as
you caused me to change my
and as an artist, how can we, be so and sanctimonious? But at the same time, you want something. Music for me is teaching and uplifting. And sometimes it's all about vibe and energy. And as a DJ, when I go out, I want people to feel good. Granted, some of them feel good listening to some of the things that's happening, and that's all right too. But at this point in my life, it is not my cup of tea.
And again, you see, if you ask me my personal view on certain things, fine. But as a conduit, which is what we in the media business, we are basically receiving and transmitting the information that is being projected out there. We try to tell a story with it. And yes, personally, some stuff just would not pass my gate. But if we're going to report it, we have a responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And to share. The big issue though is that music tells a story. It speaks to what is happening within that community at the time. And without beating the point to death, relative to a BB Seaton, he came up in a different era, and he used some of the same songs. He is on record and says there are some songs that couldn't go through the gate because of they're considered risque. I mean, Tim to over here, no.
One of the songs that would still be considered risque, Richie, but also points to a common sentiment at the time when it was written, especially the movement of Rastafari, is a song that Dennis Brown sang that BB Seaton wrote, Africa, which talks about repatriation. Because in any Rastaman you want to talk, you have to go back to Africa. Repatriation is still on the table, and some have repatriated, but the fact is that when you think and you look at some of these songs, and some of them are covers, so like he did a Beatles cover of Eleanor Rigby, but when you do songs like Love is a Treasure, I'll Never Hurt You, a song that he wrote for Delroy Wilson to sing, Mash Up Illiteracy, which addressing the fact that when Jamaica gained independence from Great Britain in 1962, 80% of the population couldn't read nor write, So that's something that the governments had to look into and say, we have to. And in the 1970s, as you know, the Jamal was launched, which helped and went a far way into bringing the literature.
It actually inverted the numbers. I think we turned around 75%.
And right now we're a nation of about 92 to 95% literate.
We're 92 to 90% black. We're still in the illiteracy mode because so many people are idiot.
No, the prejudice. That not have nothing to do with being able to read or write. You have a whole heap of educated idiot out the road.
I think we were so
You know what I'm
read
saying?
that right in some of the
A
cases.
boot in a Benz is still a boot.
Some of the people,
No matter how much money you have in your pocket, I don't care how well read or how much you can read or write. If you are uncouth, we have no part of you. So let's get into the second part of BB Seaton.
we were trying to get Dennis Al Capone to come on. We're having some issues with hearing him. Don't know why we think, but we're working on it. We're trying to get him, see if we can get him on. Dennis, in fact, had the task, arduous task of trying to arrange a night for BB Tuesday gone. Of course, in some parts of England, that's another culture. And I'm learning from talking with Dennis too, that this task has fallen to him at least half a dozen times with Alton Ellis, with Gregory Isaacs, and a couple other people.
Same at the 9-night man.
Because nothing like that no go on over this one, like Jamaica where
we don't have a wake anymore.
They don't have that. And plus it depends if the artist married to a white woman and white people them don't know about 9-night.
No man, they do wakes, not 9-night. Them do a thing where they call a wake.
Not all that. We're gonna go to the church, we're gonna sing 2 songs, and we're gonna bury him, and we'll go to the pub and we have a pint, and that's it.
No repass.
Repass again. Right? That's the nature of the place. And so he has had this task, and I know it's reached out to him that last week he was under some heavy pressure. And now we have some equipment, some issues. So I say we can try and get him on. I don't know if how it will work. We're keeping the conversation going. But the BB Seaton story is a big story. I have the material. Ideally would have loved to have him on. We're gonna keep trying that and think. But in the interim, let us roll the ball. Last week we left off where he was on the verge of breaking ranks with Coxon, because he had been working with Coxon for a number of years. Joy in the Morning, Bosso, and a couple of other songs that we had gone through out of his extensive catalog. And then he left. He had a falling out with Coxon with a tour that they took Alton Ellis and Delroy Ken Booth to England, and he said the man didn't leave him out. So he went to work with Bonnie Lee. And between his sojourn went to Bonnie Lee, he moved some of the artists that was at Coxon over to Bonnie Lee.
So the man is a talent number.
Yes. Which he admitted to, that ultimately he may have overreacted in terms of how he dealt with the thing with Coxon. But he wrote some nice songs for Slim Smith. He took the Gay Lads with him, which was his own group, and a couple of others. He did Let Me Go Girl with he wrote that for Slim Smith. It was originally recorded at Studio One, but Cox never released it, and so he went over with Bonnie Lee, and they redid the tune. And they did a lot of these recordings over by Baron Lee's Dynamic Sounds. He pulled artists like he pulled the Slim Smith. He sang with the Uniques,
Right.
As part of the backup on Let Me Go Girl. And so eventually he made fences with Coxon because he realized that he had kind of overreacted, and he gave the credit. That's one thing with him, and I think his reputation in the industry, BB Seaton, was always a positive one. He was not unwilling to call a spade a spade. And when him wrong, he put up him hand and thing. And I thought it was very noble of him. And so at the same time too, because in them time it was the Kong brothers, it was Coxon, Duke Reed, and
Leslie Kong.
So listen, he would have rather support a Coxon, because Coxon was breaking in a lot of artists who would have normally never had an opportunity. and he was not unprepared to recognize it.
Remember, even Bob Marley himself was right out of the fame of the federal records. So.
And then he talked about, he said, during the same, especially in the 1960s, there was this, the Keschin and the Souvenirs, the Baba Brooks, for the other one, the Carlos Malcolm and the Afro-Jamaican rhythms.
Right.
Those were basically the show bands coming out of the period. And him say, watching how that was unfolding, he created a group called, or a concert series, and referred to as the Conscious Mind series, where they would, he modeled it out. This, there was a production, we used to call it the Stax production. I remember we used to watch it on television, where Stax had a showcase where they featured like 3 or 4 artists. And he did this Conscious Mind concert series along the same lines, where he would have featured like 3 artists, on the bill. The Conscious Mind part of the program was like an opening for Byron Lee and the Dragonaires, who was playing. And him said, out of that, he would put on like, Ken Booth would be one of the big artists.
He wrote a couple of songs for Ken Booth.
Yes, he said he wrote 17 songs for Ken Booth. And and then they had some songs that they co-wrote as well. But the group, he said, was Ken Booth. It was the Gay Lads, Ken Booth, and like Joe White. Right. So 3 artists, and so it's like a variety presentation. And it worked. He said it was, it get a lot of traction. But this was him on the scene. So it shows you the man had a very fertile mind in terms of his business acumen, his understanding for the music, and his own willingness to push the envelope,
Yep.
And then him say on top of that, the artists liked him. And out of that, he said they grew into a little opportunity presented itself where they created this group called Lynx. Lynx was a sort of a consortium of artists who decided, it was time for them to try to own their work. Because remember, we talked about last week.
Yeah, we talked about him getting that princely sum of
420
pounds.
Right.
Because they normally get £7 10 shilling when
records for Cox,
right.
One record, right.
Boom, that's it.
So
money done.
It said they created Lynx, and Lynx featured him say Ken Booth, Delroy Wilson, and the Melodians. And then him said by this time, the Melodians used to live somewhere off a Chestnut Lane, because as a group they rent a little place and thing. And he wrote the song for them, and said what happened as the group started to get going. Melodians broke with a nice big hit called can't remember the name of it. It Comes and Goes. It Comes and Goes.
Yeah, that is a cover version, right? Too.
Yeah, and him said, what happened now? The idea was that the proceeds, whatever revenue them generate from the song, them reinvested from the arrangement, them reinvested into the group. But when the song busted, Melodians decided to let not share nothing, right? And him said, despite the potential success, him said what happened is the songs that they were producing, they were making some headway, and they did quite a number of pieces. Give Love a Try, he wrote that with Delroy Wilson, that they sung as part of the Lynx makeup. Mama Look, you remember that? Mama Look.
Yeah.
See,
Mama
right.
Look,
yeah. I remember someone, Sweet Rose, which the Melodians did, and It Comes and Goes. And he said all of them songs, they did it for the Lynx label. And when the revenue are coming, but it comes and goes. Like any concert, we need a big hit, and that big hit will roll the thing forward.
Let's regale the listeners with It Comes and Goes. A cover from Sedina. The actual title of that song was He Comes and He Goes. KNB came back with the big song, Give Love a Try, Delroy Wilson, again written by BB Seaton. Then we played Let Me Go Girl, sung by Slim Smith, and People Get Ready to Do Rock Steady. And before we went to the break, we played, what was that we were playing again, Richard? He Comes and He Goes, or It Comes and Goes. Yeah, the original was He Comes and He Goes, done by Sabina, and then the cover version by the Melodians, It Comes and Goes, sung by the one big Brent Dow.
No, that Brent Dow and the Melodians thing was, as I said, was part of that Links arrangement they were trying to put together. And as him said, it worked. You know, they did individual artists. He wrote some songs to some of the artists, and them songs went through the system, made some revenues that they put in a collective. And him said, what happened? No, it started to fall apart. When it comes and go, because Melodians used to live on West Kingston side, and most of the other guys lived in East Kingston, because that's where him come from, East Kingston. And he said, what happened is to bring the group closer together. The collective agreed to bring the Melodians, so they rent a house of Melodians close by in East Kingston, and then the song Boss. And like Melodians figure said, boy, we don't really want to be part of this thing, because we want all of the money, right? and he broke up. But him said that came on the heels, because the whole Links arrangement came about because he became even more sensitive to the predatory nature of these record producers. And he was speaking predominantly of, he had moved to Miss Pottinger, right? And he said, what happened is they did a couple of songs, and she wanted to basically claim the copyrights for the song. And he said, but that can't make no sense. Me write the song, you know. I'm saying, in fact,
well, we saw that with Cox.
Yeah, he said,
for the song Spit in the Sky, the writer designation was for C-Dot, but he was the one who wrote it, and it was sung by Delroy Wilson.
Delroy don't make $1 off of that song. But with the BB Seaton thing, say she now insisted that she wanted. He did a couple of the songs which we run through them last week. Hard to Confess, ABC, Rocksteady, I Need Your Loving, Over the Rainbow's End. And he said the Gaylords arranged and produced these songs, yet Miss Pottinger got the credit, you know. And he said the only thing that saved him is that because he had worked out a way of recording the publishing, you know, as because he said he had gone through the Jamaica Performing Society, right? Record Performing and whatever society. And he said that allowed him to keep control of the publishing. And because she wasn't into that, she wanted to take the full credit. And himself gradually started looking a different direction. But she encouraged Delano Stroud to leave the Gaylords, which he said broke him hard. He said two things broke him hard. That when Delano came and Delano come from him, a little boy, right? He said that, and when his wife left him, you know, he said two things. He said his wife leaving him was probably like a dagger in her heart, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. It had a profound impact on how he wrote songs after that. But I'm saying, you know, it wasn't the best, but he wanted
none of us are.
Yeah, I'm saying he wanted to give a good account of himself, his kids, and more importantly, the guys who came with him in the music business, because they were looking to him. And so when you know, the riff started to show, he said, "Why, you know, this is what created the Links project, and the Links thing worked to a point, and then it also fell down." But again, the significance of this for me, God, is that BB.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, Don't forget to tell your friends.